Jessica Tabb, and I am here to present my portfolio, my professional portfolio for my master's program at Concordia. Throughout the portfolio there are 10 competencies that I will be talking about, and within each competency there will be 2 artifacts that represent each one. The first competency is assess knowledge and skills of students in relation to long-term content goals and district standards, and determining the knowledge and skills each student needs to accomplish them. And my first artifact is a case study I did on one of my students in my own kindergarten classroom. It was difficult at first because he was only in a half-day program, but everything I took from it was so informative. I was able to assess the student in length and really sit one-on-one with him and get to know him as a reader. And then I was able to plan for future instruction with him. The second artifact is a reading report I did during my practicum, where I sat one-on-one with another student. The student was above grade level in reading for kindergarten, so she was working on her comprehension skills. I sat one-on-one with her, and I assessed her current reading levels, and I got to know her as a reader, and then I got to share with her in a conference about her strengths and what I thought would be areas for growth, and then we came up with a plan together of how she could improve her comprehension, and then I had to create a reading report of all that I found, including plans for instruction. And I did this with my university supervisor observing me. The second competency is design instructional plans that incorporate knowledge of students' developmental levels, interests, abilities, and learning accomplishments consistent with content goals and district standards. My first artifact was a theory to practice project I did. I had to create vocabulary and word work activities. And these are actually things I use within my own classroom. They're word work activities. Some of them included having them match a letter magnet to a word around the room, or I did a little egg game where CVC words, so they had to crack it open and then form the word. I had them match school vocabulary, so I would give them a vocabulary card like globe or desk, and they had to go match it. And it was really something I did with my own students, so it was good practice. And then the second artifact I did was a lesson I planned on the comprehension strategy of schema, of background knowledge, and it included a song that I taught the kids, and they really enjoyed it, and it helped stick it to their brain of what schema is. This was an introduction lesson for them because they had never ever heard of the word schema. They're 5 years old. But it was really informative to me. I got to plan this with my literacy coach. She taught it, and then I taught it to my PM class. So we got to practice with my AM class and then plan to do it again with my PM. The third competency is establish a classroom climate conducive to learning, positive classroom management, a safe and developmentally appropriate environment, efficient organization of time and materials, and effective transitions. So my first competency for this one was a PowerPoint I created on respect. Character education is really important to me in my classroom, and so I felt that respect is a really easy one to teach to kids. It's an early one that you could teach to 5-year-olds in kindergarten. This included a video. I like to show a lot of videos where they're singing and incorporating rhyme, and so there was a book I read, one of my favorite books, Chrysanthemum, where it had a lesson that accompanied it, and yeah, my kids really enjoyed it. The second artifact is a class promise that I have created with my teammate, actually. This is a promise that we say every day. My kids and I created this at the beginning as we put all the rules together of school, and we put it into a promise that we would say every day so that they could hold it to themselves. They would then be responsible for their actions in the classroom, and they let me know if I forget it every day, so they hold me accountable. The fourth competency is implement instructional plans that employ knowledge of subject matter and use research-based educational practices that reflect how students learn, are sensitive to individual differences and diverse cultures, and encourage parent participation. Okay, the first artifact for this competency is a unit project I created on literacy, and I focused on letters and sounds and sight words, and this is a huge focus in kindergarten. It's our yearly focus. This unit project used research-based practices and focused on diversity, learning styles, and individual differences. I feel that it focused hugely on differentiation and meeting all the different needs of my different students. The second competency was a struggling reader's toolkit that I created in Advanced Techniques for Teaching Reading. And this is a toolkit that I could use where it stated something like, if a student doesn't use one-to-one matching, you could do this. If a student doesn't look at the first sound in the word, you could do this. It was just very good. It was a good toolkit for me to be able to go back to and use for teaching my kids reading, or if I'm struggling and don't know how to help this reader, I could use that. The fifth competency is collaborate with parents, colleagues, and members of the community to provide internal and external assistance to students and to their families if needed to promote student learning. And my first artifact was a written presentation to parents on the case study I did in the first competency. So I took all the information from the case study and I presented it to the parents of this student, and I actually gave it to them at conferences. They gave me permission to do this case study, and I really wanted to share my findings with them, and I felt that it helped them to understand their child as a reader, and it helped me to understand my student as a reader. And it was also really good for me because I had to address it and deliver it in a way that they would understand without the educational jargon and acronyms. The second artifact is a pamphlet that I created on parent-teacher partnerships, and the focus was on literacy and the effect it has on a child's development of literacy. It included strategies for improving communication between teachers and parents, challenges that can come up, a list of things that parents can do with their children at home, and there were also some powerful quotes throughout the pamphlets as well that I felt addressed how important teacher and parent relationships are. And I also feel that this promoted student learning because it gave parents information on how to help their child with literacy at home. The sixth competency is evaluate student progress in learning, refine plans for instruction, and establish alternative goals or environments for learning when necessary. My first artifact was a writing lesson plan, or a lesson plan that I created on scrambled words, and it was making words, and this is something I've done with my guided reading groups anyways while using a Jan Richardson text. I focused on the at word family, and I had note cards up on a pocket chart, and we had to form words using the at word family. This was really good because I was able to teach it in my morning class, and then I was able to refine my plans and fix my instruction for my PM class. So my morning was kind of like a guinea pig, and my PM got probably the best instruction. My second artifact was my reading practicum, and this was a huge artifact for me. I completed over 90 hours of work. It was already work I was already doing, but I had to log and keep track of the things I was doing to make sure that they fell into the reading practicum requirements. I was observed by my university supervisor, who was amazing, and I've chosen to include my evaluations that she provided to me because I feel that she had me sit down with her, and we would evaluate how she felt I did, and she would ask me how I felt I did. So it helped me for refining my plans as well and reflecting on my own teaching. The seventh competency is document and report the progress of students in achieving content goals and district standards. The first artifact is a growth goals reporting sheet that I'm actually currently working on, and I will be throughout the year. Our school has required teachers to create growth goals in reading based on the DRA for each of our students, and this is actually what our educator effectiveness evaluation will be based on. It's a portion of our evaluation will be based on growth goals, but I have included an artifact where it shows all my students' individual growth goals. My goal is to have 100% of my students meet my growth or their growth targets, so it's going to be a lot of work. The second artifact is a district report card for kindergarten, and this is something that I fill out 3 times a year. It includes the district standards and it is aligned to Common Core. This is our way of reporting to parents how their students are doing or how their children are doing. And all of the things on there are end of the year goals, so they're able to see trimester by trimester where their students are based on the grades that I give them. The 8th competency is using emerging research on teaching, learning, and school improvement to enhance practices. And my first artifact was a professional book review I did on The Literate Kindergartner, and this is a book that was recommended to me by my coworkers or my colleagues at school. It was written by Susan Kempton, and she is a teacher who teaches in Denver, and our school has actually, a bunch of our teachers have been to Denver and watched her and say she is amazing. So I felt that this would be really important for me to read about. I learned a lot about early literacy and the emerging research behind it. Throughout the review, I discussed things that I appreciate about the text and things that were challenging to my thinking. I feel like through my reading and research of it, I was able to enhance my practices and take some of her strategies into my own classroom and use them with my kindergartners. The second artifact was a PowerPoint I created on the top 10 issues in education. I had to research and come up with the top 10 issues that I felt were important in education today, and I chose equity. And in our district, equity is a huge focus right now. We actually have a district goal based on equity, and I felt that this was really important for me to research because this is something that I'm going to be focusing on for the few years. Within the PowerPoint, I researched the background and history of equity, the major risks and threats, the challenges, the drawbacks, the outcomes and conclusions, and the goal of educational equity. I feel like it was really informative to my practice because this is something our district is focusing on, so I felt it was really important. The 9th competency is participate in designing, evaluating, and improving opportunities for teaching and learning in an educational institution. And the first artifact I chose is my action research project. This was another huge artifact of mine. This took so much of my time, but was so informative. I chose to research how brain breaks and movement breaks affected the engagement and on-task behavior of kindergarten students, or in a classroom of kindergarten students. And before, I believed that brain breaks were really, really necessary, but lately in our school we've been talking about engagement strategies, and I found that because I was including and incorporating engagement strategies into my instruction, the kids really did not need the brain breaks as much. I needed to be more purposeful about them. So that was really informative to know that if I keep them more engaged, they don't need to move as much. And I know that they need to move to learn, but I can be more purposeful about it. It was very informative, and I plan on continuing this throughout the year to see if things change. I also interviewed my students with this, and they all felt that it was really helpful to them. It helped them calm down because they like to move and they like to be silly. But the third-party observers I had felt that it was unnecessary, that it really actually put them more off task than put them back on task. So it was huge, and I appreciated the experience completely. My second artifact is a school-wide literacy program that I had to design. This was a task, quite the task to take on, but really informative. I've never even knew what went into creating a school-wide literacy program, and I appreciate my principal and my literacy coach for it. I had to include the role of a literacy coach, the research that informed the practice. I had to include the materials that I would use, so I had to research a bunch of different materials. I had to design and create an intervention schedule, an intervention guide. I had to create a K-6 instructional schedule, a block schedule including specials. Again, I didn't know how much work went into that. I had to develop a professional plan for support and a professional development plan, and finally a 2-year implementation plan. So it was huge, and I feel like it was a great representation because of this competency, because I had to design opportunities for teaching and learning. and I appreciate the experience. And the last competency is collaborate with one's colleagues to enhance job performance and advance teaching as a profession. And my first artifact was a book club discussion I did on the text The Daily Five. I had heard so much about The Daily Five and so many people had recommended it, but I'd never really read it and dove into it. But I completed this course online with some other classmates. We divided the book up into fourths, and we focused really, really significantly on 2 or 3 chapters a week. And then we were responsible for creating book club discussion questions, and then we were responsible for answering each other's questions. So it really put us outside our box. It made us think a little bit, and made us want to challenge our classmates to see how they felt about the book. I liked a lot of what I learned, and I have brought a lot of what I've learned into my own classroom. There's still a lot more work with it, but it's something I want to keep focusing on. So it was a great text. The second artifact and last artifact of my portfolio is an effective lesson plan that I've created with my classroom or my teammate at school. In our district or school, we are focusing on creating effective lessons for our students, and this includes Bloom's taxonomy, includes focusing solely on the standard, and including an anticipatory set, the actual lesson, and then how we will evaluate our students, how we will assess our students to know that they understand what we've taught, and then what we plan to do for the future. So yeah, that has been my portfolio, and I appreciate you watching. Throughout my master's, I have learned so much that I will take with me throughout all of my teaching. I know that there's so much more to learn because teaching is a profession that you never stop learning. But I've appreciated every experience through Concordia, and I thank everyone for your support.